Hello there. Today I'm rounding off my visit to Bordeaux for the En-primeur tastings, and I'm at the tasting for Pessac-Leognan, and there's a Sauternes tasting here as well. And I thought it would be good to talk about some of the whites, because actually this has been quite an exciting year for the whites. So I have here Chateau Olivier. Essentially what happened was that there were periods of wet weather early in the year and at harvest for the red wines. However, the white wines did their ripening and were harvested in beautiful conditions. And in fact, some of the conditions that were here really benefited the whites, because there was a period of warm weather, but with cool nights, which helped retain acidity, retain perfume in the fruit. So what we have are some beautifully aromatic white wines from Bordeaux in 2024. With some really fresh acidity that makes them very pungent. Chateau Olivier's white is a wine that's predominantly Sauvignon Blanc. About 80% of the blend is Sauvignon Blanc, with the balance of the remaining 20% being Semillon. So it's said that the Sauvignon Blanc gives the perfumed aroma and the Semillon more of the richness to a wine. I talked about the acidity being good. I'll mention that the pH here is 3.12, and that actually pHs down near 3 tend to be really quite sharp, fresh, minerally acidity. Now this is a wine that will have fermented predominantly in oak, and then will age for a period of about 8 months in oak barrels. About a third, 35% of those will be new, and actually they use a combination of, great to mention it, demi-weed, like the barrel behind me here, we're actually at La Louviere, and barrique, the smaller barrels here, with a small proportion being fermented in glass vessels called wine globes. And the idea of the larger barrel and the wine globe is to just give less obvious oak influence, because the larger barrel has a smaller surface area to volume ratio, so there's less of the wine coming into contact with the oak. So that just tends to tone down the oak character. And that can also be done by batonnage, by keeping the lees, dead yeast after fermentation, stirred up in the barrel. And during the process of aging, this imparts a little roundness and richness to the wine. And the other thing I should mention, because Chateau Olivier are very proud of it, is that 2024 is their first year of organic certification for both their white and their red wines. And I have to say, for the red in particular, they picked a challenging year to choose to do that. So let's look at the wine, shall we? First thing I should say is actually, because this is a sample that's come from the barrels, this is still slightly hazy. It's a sort of a fairly watery white with a greenish yellow hue. I'm told the wine has 13% alcohol. It's not particularly looking eager to create tears on the side of the glass there. So let's see what we think of the aromas, shall we? As I say, the acidity is really making these aromas pungent. There's a lot to find in here. There's almost a sort of a sherbety sweet note. It makes me think of old-fashioned sweets called pear drops, that sort of quite estery note. There are notes of pear there as well. There are also, not surprisingly, some classic aromas for Sauvignon Blanc. There's notes of passion fruit, although it's a little muted. Kiwi fruit aromas. Perhaps even a little bit of grassiness and just a hint of blackcurrant leaf. There's a lovely vibrancy, and after all those fresh perfumed aromas, there's some flinty notes, and I'm putting that down to some slight reductive notes coming from the yeast during fermentation. And it's not unpleasant, adding an extra level of minerally complexity to the wine. So let's have a taste, shall we? On the palate, there's actually quite an amount of slightly saline, cedary vanilla oak, but actually that salinity, or sapidity as I've sometimes heard it referred to, is really quite noticeable. It's almost making the texture soapy. Now, that sounds unpleasant, I don't actually mean it that way, but almost like a sort of greenstone note to the texture, and then behind that, a sort of juicy pear fruit. Almost a slight peppery hint. I think that's just a little bit of structure there, perhaps coming from the oak. There's plenty going on here, and because of the good acidity, because the alcohol isn't particularly high, that's allowing those perfumes to last It's a medium to medium full-bodied wine. I necessarily say that Chateau Olivier was my pick of the white wines from Bordeaux in 2024, but I would say it's a really good example, particularly because it's got this wonderful piquant sapidity about it. It's a beautifully balanced wine. So thank you very much for watching. I do hope you found the video of interest. If you do, please press the like button, that would be fantastic. If you would like to watch more of these videos, it would be great if you'd sign up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And that way you can set yourself an alert and you can be notified every time we publish a new video, and that way you don't have to miss any of them. Sure, I'll be presenting a few more videos from Bordeaux about the 2024 vintage, so do keep an eye out and do come and follow me in my travels around Bordeaux looking at this vintage. Thank you again for joining us. I'll leave a note in the box below so you can follow down to the Wine Searcher webpage for this vintage of this wine, and then once the wines are released, you'll be able to find out who's selling that, at what price it's selling for. And there will be other information that will hopefully enable you to make an informed decision if you're considering buying some of these wines. If your friends are also interested, you might want to pass the video on to them. That would be fantastic. So thank you so much for joining us, and I do hope we'll see you again soon in the near future. Till then, bye for now.